This is day 5 of Unit 9. We're talking about compositions of isometries. And the first thing we're going to talk about is what a composition is. So a composition is the result of two or more transformations that are combined to produce a single transformation. Now remember, your transformations are your translations, which are your slides, your reflections, which are your flips, and your rotations, which are your turns. Okay, so the composition of two or more isometries is an isometry, meaning it preserves all distance lengths, so all the sides are going to be the same and all the angle measures are going to be the same, right? A glide reflection is the composition of a translation and a reflection across the line parallel to the direction of translation. So here's what I mean by that. Okay, so looking at the picture of these coffee cups, look at the blue one first. All right, so the blue one is my pre-image. Okay, so I'm going to translate it up to the red, so it becomes the red coffee cup. And then reflect the red coffee cup along this line right here to obtain the green coffee cup. So my direction of translation and my line of reflection is parallel, right? So those two things are parallel, and that makes this a glide reflection. That's the only way that that is a glide reflection, is if the direction of the translation and the line of reflection are parallel. Okay, so let's look at what this looks like on a graph. Let's go to GeoGebra real quick. Maybe, let's see. Okay, so looking at this figure here, let me get the grid up. Okay, so this figure F right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to translate it to the right. I'm going to use this vector right here. Let's move it this far. Let's translate it over here. So there's a translation of this letter F. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it. I'm going to reflect it. Okay, but in order for this to be a glide reflection, my line of reflection has to be parallel to the direction in which it was translated. Do you see how it was translated from left to right right here? Okay, so my only option for my line of reflection is going to be a horizontal line. So I am going to reflect it in the x-axis here. So it will flip it over the x-axis, and then I'll obtain this one right here. Okay, so from this blue F to this purple F is a glide reflection. It was translated to the right, and then it was flipped down. Okay, so let's go back to the notes. Okay, and let's look at some examples. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this information to sketch the image of the triangle after the glide reflection. So to pause it and take a minute to go ahead and draw your first triangle. I've already drawn mine. So we're looking at triangle ABC. So plot the points for triangle ABC. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to translate it, and then we're going to reflect it. Okay, so looking at this, we are going, let me get my right color here. We are going to, also in the right color, we're going to translate it using this vector right here. Remember, this vector is in component form. We're going to move it 7 units to the right, and we're not going to move it up or down. Okay, I know we're going 7 units to the right because it's positive, so we have to go to the right. And this is the horizontal component. And the vertical component is 0, so we're not going to move it up or down. We're just going to move it to the right. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw that. So I'm going to take my point here, point A, and I'm going to move it 7 over. I know that this is at -1, -3. Now my vertical component is not going to change. It's going to say -3. But what is -1 plus 7? Okay, so you get +6. So A prime is going to be at 6, -3. So, oops, didn't mean to do that. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're right here. Okay, now we're going to translate point B. All right, so we're moving this 7 units over, so -4 plus 7 is going to be 3. So B prime is going to be at 3, -1. guess I could label these. Here we go. This was A prime. Okay. And C prime is -6 plus 7, which is going to be 1. And the vertical component doesn't change. It's going to be at 1, -4. Okay, I'm just going to connect these dots. Make sure you connect yours too. Okay, so now we've done the translation, but to complete our glide reflection, we now have to reflect it. Okay, so we are going to be reflecting in the x-axis, which means this is our x-axis, so we're just going to flip it up. And like you're just going to be the same number away from the line of reflection on both sides. So we can reflect B first if you like, since it's closer to the line of reflection. You're 1 unit away below it, so your image is going to be 1 unit above it. So we'll draw that. I'm drawing, there we go. All right, so there is B double prime. There are 2 prime marks. Okay, so C here is 1, 2, 3, 4 away. So there's still going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 away. You'll be up here. So that will be C double prime. All right, then A is 3 units away. So it'll be 3 units away up here. So A double prime is going to be at 6, 3. Okay, and just connect your dots. Whoops. What is it doing? It's erasing my dots. Okay, so just connect these, connect that, and connect this. And for some reason, I erased my A double prime. Okay, so these are the coordinates that you should have gotten for all of these. Okay, so I want y'all to try the next one. Y'all pause the video for a moment and try the second one here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to translate this first, because that's what came first in our order up here. And then we're going to reflect it. Okay, so looking at this, we're going to take our pre-image and we're going to slide it. Okay, we're not going to do a horizontal component, so that's going to stay the same, but we are going to move it vertically, and we're going to move it up 5. Okay, so we're going to keep our horizontal numbers, our x coordinates, and we're going to change the y coordinates. Okay, so looking at this, Q is going to move from 2, -3, and it's going to slide up 5. So -3 plus 5 is 2. So Q prime will be at 2, 2. All right, R, which is at 4, -4, is going to slide up 5. So -4 plus 5 is 1. So it is going to be at 4, 1. That's R prime. All right, and S, which is at 5, -1, will slide up 5. So -1 plus 5 is 4. So S prime is going to be at 5, 4. And just connect the dots real quick. Okay, so now what we have to do is we have to reflect it. And this time we're reflecting it in the y-axis. Okay, so we're going to flip it over here. You're going to end up over here in quadrant 2. Okay, so the first one we're going to move is point Q. So you're 2 units away from the line of reflection, so you'll be 2 units away over here. So Q2 prime is going to be at -2, 2. Right, R prime, which is 4 units away from your line of reflection, will still be 4 units away, and it'll be at -4, 1. right there, R2 prime. All right, and S prime will also be coming over here. All right, so S prime is 5 units away, so it'll still be 5 units away, so you're going to be at negative 5, 4. All right, so there's S2 prime. So we're just going to connect our dots here. Okay, so there we go. And here are the coordinates that you should have gotten. Okay, so those are glide reflections. And remember, a glide reflection is when the line of reflection and the direction of the translation are parallel. That's what makes it a glide reflection. It has both the translation and a reflection, and the direction of translation and the line of reflection are parallel. So let's go look at some other compositions. Okay, so looking at this one, all right, I wrote down some things I wanted y'all to remember from the last lesson. So let's just review that really quickly. All right, remember when you're doing a rotation, a 90-degree rotation from the current quadrant will get you to the next quadrant. Okay, so if you're in, for example, quadrant 1, we'll say you're here. This is quadrant 1. Okay, and you're wanting to rotate 90 degrees. Okay, if you rotate 90 degrees, you're going to end up in quadrant 2. But what if you rotate 270 degrees? Well, that's like 93 times, right? So you'll move 3 quadrants. So you go 1, 2, 3, you'll end up in quadrant 4. Okay, if you want to rotate 180 degrees, you'll move, it's like 90 degrees 2 times, so you'll move 2 quadrants. All right, so no matter what quadrant you're in, 90 degrees will just get you to the next quadrant. Make sure you're going counterclockwise, which is the opposite direction in which a clock turns. Okay, so you also need to think about the signs of X and Y in each quadrant, which is why I wrote this here. All right, in quadrant 1 here, let me write that this is quadrant 1. So in quadrant 1, you have both X and Y are both positive. In quadrant 2, you have that X is negative and Y is positive. In quadrant 3, both X and Y are negative. And in quadrant 4, X is positive and Y is negative. Okay. Another thing to remember, the X and Y values switch on 90 degrees and 270-degree rotations, meaning, like, for example, right here, I'll do this one. So, like, if X is a value of 3 and Y is a value of 4, that means if it was rotating 90 degrees or 270 degrees, you would just flip-flop these. So X would become 4 and Y would become 3. Okay, so let's actually look at these right here. It says sketch the image of the segment after the given composition. So I gave you segment PQ, and I've already drawn mine, so take a second and draw yours. All right, so P is at 2, -2, and Q is at 3, -4. All right, so we're going to rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. Okay, so we're going to rotate first. So what we're going to do is if we're going counterclockwise, that means we're going the opposite direction of which a clock turns. Okay, and we're going 90 degrees, which means we're going to go to the next quadrant. I'm currently in, I'm going to look at P first. I'm currently in quadrant 4, so that means I'm going to end up in quadrant 1. I'm rotating 90 degrees, which means my X and Y values switch. So P was at 2, -2, so they're both values of 2, so it's still going to be 2, 2. But up here in quadrant 1, remember your signs are both positive, so you're going to be at 2, 2. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. Let me get my right color here. So it'll be at 2, 2. Right there. All right, that is P prime. Okay, so Q prime will be also in quadrant 1. So it was at 3, -4. So remember, you're going to switch your values. So you'll be 4, 3, but it's going to be both positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's not right. Yeah, it is. You're at 4, 3. Oh, I drew this wrong down here. That is the problem. Let me fix that. Q is at 3. 1, 2, 3, 1. Okay, sorry, fix that problem. All right, so looking at this, so P prime is right here. Okay, and then Q prime is going to be at 4, 3. So it is right here. All right, and I'm just going to connect my dots, which is right there. Okay, so there is the rotation. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is we have to reflect it in the y-axis. So we're just going to be flipping it over the y-axis here. Okay, so to do that, get my right color pen here. Okay, so I'm just going to flip it vertically over the y-axis. So I know that I'm 2 away from the line of reflection right here. So I'm going to be 2 away over here. So P2 prime is going to be negative 2, 2. Oh, it won't right. There we go. All right, so P2 prime. All right, in Q prime, we know that Q is 4 away from the line of reflection, so it's still going to be 4 away on this side, so you're going to be at negative 4, 3. Okay, so there is Q2 prime. All right, now you have to connect your dots. There we go. Okay, so y'all pause the video. Actually, first though, these are the coordinates you should have gotten. Written right there. Okay, now pause the video and y'all do number 2. Okay, so we have line segment CD. C is at 2, 0, and D is at 3, 3. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to reflect it in the x-axis. So your line of reflection is the horizontal line of the x-axis right here. If you notice, point C is on the line of reflection, and remember, when you have a point that is on the line of reflection, the pre-image and the image are going to be the same. Okay, so C prime, I'm just going to do a circle. Oops. I'm just going to do a circle around it. Okay, so there. That's also C prime. Okay, I'll just label it like that. Okay, so D prime, you know that you are 3 away from the line of reflection, so you're going to be 3 away down here. All right, so D prime is going to be at 3, negative 3. Right there. So this is D prime. So all you have to do is connect your dots like that. Okay, so let's look at the rotation. Okay, so your rotation is, let me change my pen color. Okay, so you're rotating 270 degrees counterclockwise. Okay, so how many 90 degrees is that? It's 3 of them, so you're moving 3 quadrants. So you're in quadrant 4, so you're going to be moving 1, 2, 3. You're moving 3 quadrants, so you'll be, oops, sorry, counterclockwise, my bad. Moving counterclockwise, so you're going to be 1, 2, 3. You'll be in quadrant 3 down here. Okay, so looking at point C, you're on an axis here. So you're going to remain on an axis. Okay, and because you're rotating 270 degrees, that means your x and y's will switch. So instead of being 2, 0, it's going to be 0, 2, but we need to see where we're going to be to see what the signs of those are going to be. So let's go counterclockwise. Let's go 1 axis, 2 axis, 3 axis. Okay, so you're going to be at 0, not going to go left or right, and you're going to go down 2. So you're going to be right here. All right, so that is C2 prime. Okay, so looking at point D prime, you have to rotate it 270 degrees counterclockwise. So again, you're going 3 quadrants. So 1, 2, 3. So you're going to be over here in the 3rd quadrant, meaning that your signs are for X and Y are both going to be negative. And because you do have to switch them, but these are both 3, so you're just going to be at negative 3, negative 3. Okay, so I'm just going to draw that. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 right there. All right, so this is D2 prime, and then you just connect your dots. Okay, so let's look at number 3 here. I want y'all to pause the video. Well, let me give you the directions first. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to repeat number 1, but you're going to switch the order of the composition of performing the reflection first and the rotation second. So I want you to sketch that out, and then I want you to tell me what you notice. Okay, so pause the video and work on that. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is reflect in the y-axis right here. Okay, so we know that P is 2 away from the line of reflection. So we know that P prime will also be 2 away from the line of reflection. So P prime is going to be at -2, -2. Okay, if you're unpausing the video, you probably noticed that my PQ has changed a little bit because I had it graphed wrong again because I wasn't paying attention when I graphed it the first time. So I have corrected it. So now what we need to do is we need to reflect this in the y-axis, like I was saying. So you're 2 away from the y-axis. So you're going to be 2 away over here. So P prime is going to be at -2, -2. Okay. And Q prime, which is well, Q right here is 3 away from the line of reflection. So you're still going to be 3 away from your line of reflection. So Q prime is going to be at -3, -4. Okay, so connect those dots. All right, so the next thing we have to do is we have to rotate this 90 degrees counterclockwise. So remember, 90 degrees just gets you to the next quadrant. So if you were in, you're going counterclockwise, meaning you're going the opposite way that a clock turns. So if you're in quadrant 3, you're going 90 degrees, you're going to end up in quadrant 4. Okay? So remember also when you rotate 90 degrees, you switch your X and Y values, but you have to make sure what quadrant you're in before you know what the signs of those X and Y coordinates are going to be. So if you're looking at point at P prime was at -2, -2. Okay, so the 2 and the 2 are going to stay the same. All right, but you're going to be in the 4th quadrant here, so it's going to be a +2, -2. So you're going to go +2, -2. It's the same point as your pre-image P. So what I'm going to do is just do a little outside line circle here around the first one there. And just say, okay, that's P2 prime. All right, now let's look at Q. Again, you're just rotating 90 degrees, so you're going to go from the 3rd quadrant to the 4th quadrant. Point Q prime here. That was prime. I never wrote it over there. There we go. All right, Q prime was at -3, -4. So you're going to switch the 3 and the 4 values. So now you're going to be at 4, 3, but you need to make sure since you're in the 4th quadrant, you have the right sign. So it's going to be positive X. So you're going to go over 4 and you're going to go down 3. So it's going to be +4, -3. Right there's Q2 prime. Okay, so whoops. There we go. Okay, so there's what it is. Now it asks, what did you notice? Okay, so let me go ahead and give you all these there real quick. Those are the coordinates you needed. Okay, so looking at what you noticed here. All right, so instead of up here, let's look up here first. Okay, so up here, our final image was in the 2nd quadrant. Now down here, our final image is in the 4th quadrant. So basically that's what it is. So instead of being in quadrant 2 like number 1, I'll write it down. So a different color though, purple. All right, so instead of being in quadrant 2 like number 1, line segment P2 prime, Q2 prime is in quadrant 4. Okay. All right, so looking at these questions over here, pause for just a minute and I want y'all to try to answer these questions. Okay. All right, number 1, does the order in which transformations are performed affect the final image? Well, looking at what we just did right here, it did matter. Okay, because up here, our final image was in quadrant 2. Down here, it was in quadrant 4. Although we did the same process as we did them in a different order, making our final image different. But what about when we did a glide reflection? Let's look back at the Desmos activity that we just did. Okay, so let's take away this and this. What would have happened? Let me do the translation real quick. If we had reflected first, it would have looked like that, right? and then we had translated second. It still would have looked the same way. Because our line of reflection and the direction of our translation were parallel in glide reflection, it did not matter which one we did first. So looking back at the notes right here, does the order in which transformations performed affect the final image? Yes, unless it is a glide reflection. Right? What about, is the composition of a translation and a reflection always a glide reflection? Always? Strong word. Right? So no. Only when the line of reflection is parallel to the direction of the translation. That is the only time that the composition of a translation and a reflection is a glide reflection. That has to be true. Okay, so when is the only time the order of a composition does not matter? Well, you probably already guessed it, in a glide reflection. Okay, let's move on to the last two examples. Looking at these two. Okay, so here we need to describe the composition of the transformations. So looking at this, so we know that the blue figure here, A, B, C, D, that is our pre-image. That is our very first image. So what do we do to that to obtain A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime? And then what do we do to A prime, C prime, B prime, C prime, D prime to get A2 prime, B2 prime, C2 prime, D2 prime? How do we go from the blue to the red and then the red to the green? What happened? How many transformations is that? Okay, it is two transformations. Okay, so there are two transformations that are shown here. The first one, you reflect A, B, C, D across this line of reflection of x equals 2, all right, to obtain this red figure right here. And remember, this is x equals 2 because it's going through 2 on the x-axis. Okay, so that was the first one. We did a reflection. The second one is a rotation. Okay, so we rotated A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime 90 degrees about this point right here. What is that point? It is 2, 0. Okay, we rotated it 90 degrees and we rotated it clockwise, not counterclockwise, but clockwise. Okay, so A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime was rotated 90 degrees clockwise about the point 2, 0 to obtain this green figure right here. Okay, so pause the video for a second and answer number 2 to describe those transformations. Okay, so what you should have gotten is that, oh, I can't get rid of that. Let's see, let's just leave. Okay, so first of all, you had triangle ALM right here. All right, you rotated it clockwise 180 degrees about this point right there, which was 0.11, to obtain triangle A prime, L prime, M prime. And then you took the red triangle right here and you slid it up. You translated it, okay? You translated it by the vector -2, 4, which means you shifted it to the left 2 and up 4 to obtain this green triangle right here. Okay? All right, so that concludes day 5, the composition of isometries.